Hi, this is Descent from Fantasy Flight Games. It's a 5-hour dungeon crawling extravaganza for 2 to 5 players. In the game, you have two sides. The players form one of 2 factions in the game. The players can be the heroes, which attempt to go through the dungeon and fulfill a grand mission, or the evil overlord, who stands in their way, spawning legions of terrible monsters that try to kill the heroes. Okay, this is what's inside the Descent box. You have a rule book. It's 25 pages. You have a quest guide, which is what's used to describe the different missions that the heroes will undertake, and a whole lot of pieces. These pieces right here construct the dungeon. That's one of the things that the Overlord does, is construct the dungeon, the initial dungeon map for the beginning of the game. You have a bunch of cards which describe skills, treasures, and stuff that the Overlord can do. These are player cards, describes the different heroes. The heroes themselves. And you have a whole lot of monsters. You have dice, which are used in combat. And then you have a lot of chits. There's one more box underneath here. Now, important to note here, this container system didn't come in the box. This is something that I did. The box will come with 2 partitions and a sunken-in partition where the cards will sit. My first suggestion is you're going to want to get this out of the box and organize it right away. It'll help the game experience a whole lot. Okay, quick note about the rulebook. The rules are laid out in a fairly logical fashion, but it's really important to note there's not a really high level of organization. There's not a table of contents in here. There's not an index. It's just a ton of rules that are somewhat organized. So what we're going to do for you is go over the basic flow of play. This is what a dungeon can look like in the game. Like I said, the group of players can either be heroes here, that could be doing a mission. For instance, this giant here could be a really bad guy and terrorizing the villages surrounding the dungeon, and you could be trying to kill him. The Overlord is, well, in this particular example, trying to keep him alive and trying to keep these guys not alive, but essentially just trying to kill them. Okay, so during the flow of play, the heroes act first, and then the Overlord gets to react to whatever the heroes do. So, starting with the heroes can do several things. The first thing that happens is there's certain items that the heroes can get in the game that are used up once per turn. They refresh at the beginning of the turn. After that, the players have a choice. They can either basically move or attack. So basically, each player has a set of movement points, and they could either run, which means they get to advance, double their movement points in any direction, including diagonally. They can advance, which allows them to move just their number of movement points, and then fight. Or they could battle, which means they stand in place and attack twice at anything that may be nearby. And then after that, the Overlord gets to act. The Overlord has various powers that they could use through cards that are in the game. They can activate those. Some of those spring traps on the heroes. Some of them allow them to spawn monsters in various places. And then the Overlord can do the same thing, can move his characters against the heroes, and again in attempts to try to kill them. And after he's done everything he wants to do, we start the whole process again. Okay, so let's say Mordrog wants to go and hack up on the Bane Spider here. So he can move 3 spaces, so he's going to do that. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now what you would do is a combination of his abilities with his character and his weapon. He'd roll some dice. So it looks like he's got 3, 6, 7, 8 hearts, which represent damage, and he's got 1 little thunderbolt here, which helps him with even more damage. So he has 9 damage, and it looks like the Bane Spider has 5 hit points with 2 armor for a total of 7. He did 9 damage against 7 damage. Bane Spider's dead. Okay, heroes have taken their turns, and now it's time for the Overlord to act. I mentioned before, the Overlord has special powers that he has by cards that he has in his hand that can spring traps on the players, can spawn new monsters, or could just cause just general badness to happen. So, for instance, he could spawn 2 more, skeletons to harass the players. And then, after he's done all of this, he activates all of his monsters in an attempt to kill the heroes. So, for instance, he could move the skeletons up like so, and then he'd have his own combat phase to resolve with the heroes, and they'd take damage, and maybe they die, maybe they don't. Okay, so these are some of the cardboard bits that help you manage the game. We've got some potions here, some money, we've got health, and we've got stamina, and then we've got conquest tokens. Conquest tokens are what the primary goal of the game is. It's how it's measured. As the heroes do good things in the game, the heroes get these tokens, and as the Overlord does bad things to the heroes, they lose these tokens. If the heroes are able to fulfill the objective and have at least one of these conquest tokens left, they win the game. If the Overlord depletes all of their tokens, the heroes lose. And then we have these Doom tokens. The Doom tokens are the currency that the Overlord uses to spawn its powers. Okay, this is a sample of what a player could start with. Player starts with a certain amount of hit points, a certain amount of stamina, which allows them to perform certain actions in the game, and a set of skills, and some money. The money could be used to buy things at the shop. So, like for instance, this is a magic player, so they could get these things. And the skills here match the icon here with the starting skills. So a player starts with something like that. Okay, this is the inside of the quest book. This is the main device that the Overlord will use to drive the game. There's an initial map layout here, complete with the creatures that will start the game. They'll start the game out. It shows the treasures, if there's loot to be had, where the loot is, and what the loot does, and some backstory. Like for instance, this quest here. Our new adventurers are trying to prove themselves, so they have to go and kill a giant. Alright, this is the bestiary, basically one of each of all the monsters that are in the game. There are 2 types of monsters in the game here. The white ones are the run-of-the-mill monsters that the Overlord will be able to spawn, and the red ones are what termed the master monsters. They have more hit points, they have more special powers, they're more annoying for the heroes. The casts that they did, that Fantasy Flight did for these miniatures are a touch above your regular plastic minis. There's a lot more detail here. Several examples of these things being painted, like minis that you would see in a miniature war game. There's that level of quality. Fantasy Flight did a really good job with the plastic here. Okay, so that's Descent. Couple of things before we leave you. There are several expansions to this game. One in particular I'll point out, Road to Legend, adds a whole other layer of depth to this world. It adds an overland map. It adds an advanced campaign where your characters grow along with you as you traverse through all the different quests. The other expansions also add different types of monsters. They add new pieces to build the dungeons, they add more effects, they add more magical things, more weapons. This is a lot to cover for a gamer that's just starting to learn Descent, even a gamer that's experienced in these hobby type of games. So while we'd love to have you have the core game along with a bunch of the expansions all at once, focus on the core game first before moving on. There are a lot of one-shot quests that are available online. Fantasy Flight also has a database of player-created quests and player-created campaigns that you can do both with just the core game and the core game plus a bunch of expansions. So there's a lot to the world. It's a very, very deep game. Descent is a good buy.